Arcturus fans, we get to smile like we're followers of a cult. We get to look to the stars in the sky admiring the constellations, but focusing just on one, and that is, of course, Arcturus, who have, after a 10-year wait, after a 10-year journey of dormancy, of inactivity, of perhaps some broken promises and some strange moments, have released a new album. This is one that is highly anticipated, exceptionally hyped. The single that preceded it, The Arcturian Sign, was certainly one that gave us all a taste of what was to come. But the 10-year wait, the 10-year dabbling while the cult was inactive, was it worth it? And that is what this review aims to actually answer. That is the question we will answer and the mystery that we will solve. So after 10 long years, what has happened with this band? The singer of this band is still going to be ICS Vortex. Now, this is something where he was doing some work with the band. In fact, whenever you remember Sideshow Symphonies, the last album that came out, this was one that really had a tough mountain to climb. They had a really tough mountain to climb with that album after releasing the excellent The Sham Mirrors. And it's an album that many people feel didn't quite really live up as an adequate follow-up, though I did enjoy a number of tracks off of it. With this album right here, I feel like this band is kind of reinvigorated in a point where they wanted to go into the studio and kind of be absent from expectation, kind of be absent from that whole ideology of attempting to outdo what you've previously done and instead just go in and do. And in the process, end up outdoing just about everything that you've ever done. This is a very solid, very creative, and exceptionally curious record in the fact that it has the twists and turns, the bends of the previous two records, The Sham Mirrors and Sideshow Symphonies, all kind of wrapped together with its own new forged identity that furthers the weirdness a little bit further, furthers that avant-garde charm that has made Arcturus one of the mainstays, one of the beloved poster children for this subgenre of metal, which typically and traditionally does not get all of that much attention, which is criminal in my opinion. The album, of course, starts off with a single with The Arcturian Sign. We, of course, have heard this before, and we knew that this was a signpost for things to come. Now, some people will actually say that this song sounds a little bit weak, and whenever that was initially being said, when this was the only song that was being revealed, I would have been one to say, no, you're wrong. This is actually a very strong track. And then you listen to the remainder of this album and you start to realize that, yeah, actually it kind of is. By comparison to the rest of this album, this is a great opener, but it's not one that stands up to some of the other terrific tracks that are on this album. I first want to look toward track number 5, Game Over, which kind of just has this adequate feel to it because there's a lot of titles on here that remind me of gaming in a way, either that or remind me a lot of nerd culture, such as Warp, either that or Archer or Bane or The Journey, you know, things like that. Demon, you know, I can immediately think of games, either that or I can think of film that would be kind of a perfect fit, but obviously that's not completely the intent. But Game Over just has this swirling atmosphere to it. It's the longest track on the album at nearly 6 minutes in length, and really it's one of those great separator songs that you get on a record such as this, a 10-track affair at 47, near 48 minutes, that really kind of divides that album in half logically. The first half of this record is very strong, don't get me wrong. It definitely gets a lot of the motor running and delivers with songs such as Crashland and Angst. I'm a huge fan of Crashland just because of how bombastic it really is and how it just really kind of kicks things into high gear right away. You know, The Arcturian Sign definitely has a powerful approach to it, but Crashland just really lives up to its name. But Game Over separates these two parts and does so magnificently by delivering probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest, tracks on the album. It's one that just is a magnificent journey. It's a real journey, and if you ride this tide out, man, are you going to be rewarded in the end. And then what it actually does is begins the second half of this record with songs such as Demon and Pale. And those two tracks, while not being slouches, kind of remind me a lot of The Arcturian Sign in the fact that they're fairly decent tracks. They have very, very strong characteristics to them, very strong rhythm, But really, the meat of side 2, really where side 2 really just starts to really overtake side 1 in absolute mystique and charm, not to mention just superseding it musically, is beginning with The Journey. The Journey is exceptionally creative. It's a slower, more toned down, scaled back track that's just absolutely beautiful. But then it goes straight into Archer, which is very sinister, very direct, and it has a very kind of macabre focus to it. It's very well executed, and then it finally ends with Bane, and Bane delivers on so many different levels based around the fact that this is a song that ends with a guitar solo that is right out of the reminiscent Arcturus playbook from such great albums such as The Sham Mirrors, I'm Looking at Nightmare Heaven, either that or Kinetic, perhaps. This is just a trademark Arcturian staple. And they throw it right there on the end of the album just to leave you feeling that extra little twinge of awesome, that extra little twinge of, I can't believe not only has this finally happened, but I can't believe it's over. I want to relive it again. And then you do. Then you go back to track 1 and you start it all again. 10 years worth of waiting, and damn am I satisfied. I don't know about you. I actually want to know what your thoughts are in the comments below and your rating of the album, whether or not this was a fitting return for Arcturus, but I feel very strongly that it was. The creativity is definitely top-notch on this. They have superseded Sideshow Symphonies, even though I feel like that was not really the approach that they took. They wanted to make an individual creative album that stood by itself and stood amid the greats in their catalog, and it does. I really think that it does. I would give this album a 91 out of 100, so a 9.1 for all of you who are still hooked on the 1 to 10 scale. This album has very few in the way of flaws. There are some moments where it feels a little bit like they were a bit overambitious, either that or kind of recycled a little too much from some of their playbook. I feel that Sideshow Symphonies does pop up every so often, and I think it's just the way in which they write a little bit, but that's not something that should be held against them. However, it is something that made some of the songwriting feel a little bit expected, as opposed to the whole thing being a conceptual surprise. But aside from that, bravo. And you would expect that from these guys. You would expect that from a grouping of gentlemen that literally form by themselves, by them being in other projects, a pantheon of great albums and great bands that we speak about on this channel almost all the time. You know, maybe they're no longer a member of it, or maybe that they are. But damn, consider some of the names that we've spoken about on this channel. We're talking Mayhem, we're talking Borknagar, we're talking Oliver, we're talking Dimmu Borgir, we've talked about them, we've talked about Vintersorg. I mean, these are amazing names, so you would expect great things from these individuals, and they delivered. And the weirdos, once again, have given all of us something to really, really be proud of. It's okay to be weird, and it's okay to turn your head to the skies, because Arcturus is back, baby, and damn, this album was solid. But what did you think? Let me know in the comments. Oh, I gotta listen to this again, because I've been waiting 10 fucking years for this. Coolest moment of the day.